Don Saylor's my name, and Ledsaw's my post office. And the name of my story is Boy That Never Seen a Fraid. And my grandmother told it to me. Now, this boy one day decided he'd go out in the world and see if he could see anything to be afraid of. Well, he started out one day and he walked all day and he was tired and hot, and that night he comes and seen a big white house, pretty too, upon the side of a bank. Well, he hollered and said, "Hello." Nobody didn't answer. Well, he said, I think I'll just go up and see if anybody lives up there. And well, there was nobody in there. He opened the door and there's a little old bed back in the corner. He said, "I can't understand why they don't live here." He said, "This is an awful nice house." Well, he said, I'll just go on down the road. He went on down about a half a mile and he seen a little hut up on the hill. It was getting dusky dark. He said, "Hello," and this old man come to the door. He said, "I'd like you to stay all night here." This old man says, "Okay." And he went up and ate supper. And he says, why ain't nobody lives up there in this white house for about half a mile? He says, "Oh," said, "that place is haunted." Said, nobody lives up there. And he said, "How much you give me to go up there and stay in that house tonight?" And he said, "I'll give you 20 gold guineas." And he says, "Okay." He went up there and had this little bed in there, and he had a quilt. He laid down, and about the time he laid down, in walked two big bears. He said, "Whoops, you see, I wish I had me two big bulldogs." About that time, I opened through the door, and in they walked. They went to fight, and these bears was trying to get him, and the dogs would pull him back. They fought for about an hour, and then the door flew open, and they all walked out. Well, he laid down, went to sleep. The next morning, the old man come up and says, "Hey, are you dead? Are you dead?" This man says, he run out and on the porch, said, "Dead?" Says, "Why, man, you should have come up here last night. I had the awfulest fight there was." He said, "Gee, I wouldn't come up for nothing." Says, "I heard it. I thought they was turning the house down up there." And he says, well, the old man said, "Let's go down and eat breakfast." He says, "Okay." They went down and eat breakfast, fooled around that day. And then they went, he said, asked the old man, says, "How much you give me to stay up there tonight?" He says, "Well," says, "I'll give you 10 gold guineas." He says, "Okay." And he suffered and went back up again that night. There's about the time he lay down, two big bulls come in. He says, "Whoops, you see, I wish to have my two big bulldogs." About that time they come in. They fought for about an hour, and then they opened through the door and they all walked out. Well, the old man come up and hollered and said, "Are you dead? Are you dead?" And he jumped and run to the door and says, "No, man." Says, "I had the all fight up here last night. There was. You ought to come up." He said, "Gee, I want to come up for nothing." Well, he went down and ate breakfast, fooled around that day, and he said, right late that evening, he says to him, says, "How much you give me to stay tonight?" He said, "I'll give you 5 gold guineas." He says, "Okay." He said, "I believe I'll just take me a skillet and some stuff up there and fix my own supper tonight." He got him a skillet and took it up there, built a fire, and then got his supper, and he was sitting down eating. He was getting about half through, and the door flew open, and then slid a big coffin, and he said, "Whoops, you see, boy, I'm having some good kindling wood." And he jumped for his axe, and about that time, the coffin lid come open, and out stepped a man with his head cut off. And this man motioned to him and says, "Follow me." He says, "Wait till they eat." He says, "Okay." Well, he eat. They started out the door and said, "Oh, I forgot my hat. I better go back and get it." He went back and got his hat, and they traveled through a big lot of barns, briars, and everything, and long ways. And finally this man with his head cut come to an old barn. He walked inside, and he picked up a mattock and started digging. He dug and he dug, and finally he said, "Here, you dig a while." This boy's thing says, "Must be going to kill me or bury me or something," but I don't know why. He still wasn't afraid, though. And he dug and he dug. Finally, he handed it over to this man with his head cut. Says, "Here, you dig a while. I'm tired." Well, this man dug a long time, and he finally hit something with clank. And he dug around. He says, "Come here and help me pull this out." He says, "Okay." And he ran over and pulled it out, and he opened the lid and sat down beside it. His big chest full of gold. He said, "I was killing rock for this, and they was going to kill me." He said, "I wouldn't let them have it. I died before I would." He went and said, "I buried it here." He said, "I'm giving it to you." He says, "You're the only man or person that has ever stayed down in that White House the night without being afraid. He says, I want you to give that old man that lives down there below, he said, I want you to give him part of this money too. And this boy said, okay. He picked his money up, about all he could carry, started down the road with it. And then he got down there and slid on his bed and laid down, went to sleep. Next morning, old man came up and said, hey, are you dead, are you dead? And he jumped up and opened the door and said, dead. I said, man, you ought to come here and look what I've got. He said, oh, I wouldn't come in there for nothing. Well, he said, I'll bring it out and show it to you. He brought it out and showed him his chest full of gold. He says, that man told me to give you part of this. I said, sure, how much you want? He says, gee, I won't take none of that for nothing in this world. He said, well, I'll take it. And he run and threw it back under his bed and I went down and ate breakfast and then and he fooled around there and he was rich and everything. Finally he got married and lived happy ever after.